This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The content shared is not a substitute for professional medical, mental health, legal, or financial advice. Please consult a qualified professional for personalized guidance or treatment. By listening, you acknowledge that the hosts and guests are not responsible for any decisions or actions you take based on this content.
Feel like a grouch, go beyond the couch. Share your confessions on the Aurora Sessions.
Hello, Aurora Healing Crew. Welcome to the Aurora Sessions Beyond the Couch, where we take the stressors that come up in session and bring them into conversation beyond the couch. This is the space where real talk meets real life. Hi, everyone. This is Teresa here, the founder of Aurora Sun Counseling, a group private practice providing psychotherapy for clients in New Jersey, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Today we have Angela Gellin as our guest, and I probably I don't know why this is a thing now, but it is. I chop up people's names. Is it Gellin or Gellin?
So it is Gellin here in America. It is a Creole word, so it would be pronounced Gellin, but here in America it's Gellin. So you said it perfect.
Creole. Okay, we're going to dive into that because my friend, she knows how to speak Creole. And it's very fascinating to me that her brain works that way. Okay, well, Angela is one of the therapists at Aurora Sun Counseling, and we will be interviewing her today regarding her niche. And Ariane is joining us as well.
Hi, I'm Ariane Fontaine. Like Teresa said, I'm one of the therapists here, and I'm usually behind the scenes for the podcast, but this is a really good conversation, and I wanted to join. Thanks, Angela.
So Angela, I've known her for many years. She was actually an intern when I first met her. And since then, she has gotten her LAC, which is the Licensed Associate Counselor, and also her MFT, which is for Marriage and Family Counseling, which is her passion. And she's working towards her LPC and LMFT, which is to be fully licensed in those areas. Angela, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at Aurora?
So I'm one of the counselors who sees couples at Aurora. I mostly see couples, and women of all ages. And like Teresa said, I've been with her since 2021.
Wow.
She's been my supervisor. Yeah.
Nice. And I was so honored when you wanted to come over here. So can you tell us your journey and what led you to becoming a therapist, your path to becoming a therapist?
Yeah, so I think my journey started when I was younger. I grew up in a home that was not really a happy home, like so many people. And it was taboo in my community to get therapy. So when I went away to college, I started seeking out therapy, and I had positive experiences. And so that's kind of what led me down this path.
That honestly is so brave of you to seek it out on your own, like as a young adult in college, which I think a lot of people probably can relate that, especially if you don't have access because whether or not your parents weren't open to it or the people you were living with or able to get there or pay for it when we go to college, that is a great place to access the student center. Is that where you went, the student center at your
I
college?
did. Yes, I went to the student center. I, was nervous to even go to the student center
Mm,
because historically in my community, the mantra is always, family business stays in the house.
mhm.
You don't talk about such things. So I was nervous even to go to the student center. But what I found was that opening up about things helped. So it just started, like a lifelong, I guess, journey for me with, seeking therapy. And even now, as a therapist, I have a therapist.
Which we talk about a lot, and Ariane, I know, talks about a lot, is very passionate. She's a therapist grandbaby, I think I saw. Like, I remember one of your posts, you're like, if my therapist has a therapist, am I a therapist grandbaby? I'm like,
Yeah, I really think that we need it. I mean, a doctor goes to a doctor. Why would we not check in with our own mental health as we're serving and helping other people with theirs? But yeah, proud
Yeah.
therapist with a therapist.
Awesome. And so, with your experiences, what led you to, because sometimes I think we either go the opposite way and say, like, I don't ever want to work with this population. I remember when there was a death in the family, I'm like, I could never work with grief or hospice work. That would be too triggering. What led you to want to work with couples and families and maternal health, which is what we're also going to be talking about? Because one of the reasons that when I have clients seeking someone who is looking for a family therapist or a couples therapist, I say, listen, my go is Angela because she actually is passionate and wants to do this.
Thank you.
And some have said, but she's because there's some that are also therapists and they're like, not to be like this, but it says that she's an LAC. I said, listen, I get it. As a therapist, like of 20 plus years, I would want someone seasoned, licensed, all that stuff. But Angela's your go to. I go to her for questions. So, what led you to like be so passionate about families and couples and maternal health?
I think that for me, personally, marriage has been such a positive force in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just believe in the universal good that love accomplishes. And so it was something that I wanted other people to experience and help them, almost like optimize their
Yes.
relationships. Yeah.
Gosh, I am a hopeless romantic, and that's why I love couples like therapy. I know that's like such a strong statement, but that is my why with working with couples is because I do believe in love. Excuse me. And if there is love, I want to salvage it because for the kids, for the family, for them. But if there
hmm
isn't, then that's not often the reason to stay or the reasons not to stay. What about maternal
Right.
health, Angela?
Think that maternal health, I got interested in it when I started to have my own experiences with maternal health. I became a mother in 2013, and some of the things that I was experiencing, I had never talked about with anyone. No one had ever brought up intrusive thoughts to me
Hmm.
or postpartum depression. So I think that I wanted to have a deeper understanding of things, but also I recognize that the conversations that were happening around postpartum depression, I didn't feel represented
Hmm.
fully at the time in 2013. Now things I would say are different, but at the time I didn't feel as though women who looked like me felt comfortable discussing it. It was something that I started to discuss on my own. I started to bring it up to other women. Hey, do you ever have thoughts that you're going to shake the baby? Because I had a thought like that and it really, really scared me. So now I'm scared to hold the baby.
Hmm.
So it was something that I wanted to kind of uncover, really. Um, and through the trainings that I've done, I started to understand that a lot of what I was experiencing was normal in that postpartum period, but some of it was maybe, like a mood disorder that I could have gotten help for. So really, this is fueled by me wanting to have a deeper understanding of how we can help women.
Thank you for sharing those pieces and experiences because I know when we talk about as a therapist, it's sometimes hard because we are human. And as we are healing ourselves, we're also trying to help others. So it's hard to do both sometimes, which is to your point of getting your own therapist as well, but to share about these intrusive thoughts because it's so easy to feel like people are going to judge us.
It's true, and most new parents feel ashamed or distressed by these thoughts, and that's actually normal. If they feel distressed by those thoughts, then we know that they're not in like a higher risk category, like someone who might be suffering with postpartum psychosis, which only happens to about 1 in 1,000 women. 90% of new parents get those intrusive thoughts, but
Mm.
nobody is really talking about it because they feel ashamed or they are afraid that, if I speak up about it, are they going to take the baby? Is there going to be some kind of, repercussion to me opening up about it?
Yeah, I like that you mentioned needing representation because obviously it matters. And I think in the last couple years, a lot of women of color have been speaking out about any medical issue and having a fear of going to
Right.
the doctors because they're feeling gaslit and not having the representation. So, like Teresa said earlier, you're joining us to talk about maternal health among people of color. So, can you share like any challenges that typically people of color are facing during pregnancy or even in postpartum?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I was thinking that too because I know that's your niche and you said you got training on it. And did you find it
Mhm.
was specific things that are different?
I think it's important to consider when it comes to, the perinatal period. So that's pregnancy and postpartum. The most common complication that a woman will experience is not gestational diabetes or preterm labor or low birth rate. It is a postpartum mood disorder.
Wow.
Right, right. So in communities where mental health care is stigmatized, you can see how that really leaves a gap in them getting help for the most common complication of pregnancy in the postpartum
That's so
period.
validating, like to hear that a mood
Yeah.
disorder is the number one thing that comes from being pregnant or like having babies.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of women probably felt needed to hear that. Like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just not fit to be a mom because
exactly.
a lot of
Right.
times that's the way it feels.
And a thought like that, I'm not fit to be a mom, that is one of the common thoughts that a woman has when she's experiencing depression after
Mm.
having a baby. So, anxiety disorder might look like not being able to sleep, even though she really needs it. But postpartum depression looks like I'm just not a good mom.
Geez, where were you 2011? Oh my gosh.
Do you even think that typically people of color face these challenges during pregnancy too? Are we more common?
I think that for people of color, it's complex, right? So there are a lot of things in this country, in America, that come into play. When we talk about people of color, a large portion of the people of color in America are immigrants. Some of the ways that that shows up is through acculturation. So there's conflicts sometimes between, like a new mother and her mother, because maybe in, the country that mom came from, the
Mhm.
postpartum period was observed differently, or in the country that her mother in law came from, things were done differently. So that can be one of the things. There can be different cultural expectations as far as what mothering looks like, what the workload looks like for a mother. What are the expectations about her and her career? So there are different cultural expectations that might differ from the mainstream cultural expectations that are impacting mothers of color that are really important for us to kind of hone in on. Another thing is, for instance, Black women. Black women are 25% more likely to have an unnecessary C-section.
Hmm.
We know that that can be a risk factor for postpartum depression, especially if it deviates from what her expectation,
Her birth
like
plan.
her
Yeah.
birth plan, right? So that can be another thing that kind of, like exacerbates, impacts her
Mhm.
developing a, postpartum depression or another mood disorder.
What to piggyback off that, what are because I know when in college when we were learning about I think it was human sexuality, the class, they were saying that United States in general um has the highest C-section rate in the world and also mortality for a first world
Mm.
country.
Mm.
Infant mortality were like so high or maternal mortality. But on top of that, you're saying Black women are 25%, even more. What do you think is the reason for that?
I think that it goes back to structural inequalities, structural racism that, is really embedded in even some of the algorithms that are used to even compute something like a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. So I think as we continue to do the work collectively as a society, the hope is that those numbers start to lower. We know that things like environmental factors, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that would include, smoking, poverty, and structural racism. They impact the genome. They impact our epigenetics. And when those epigenetics are impacted, it can lead to greater risk for postpartum mood disorders. So how are things like environmental asthma, right? How is that
Right.
impacting this mother? How is it impacting her stress levels, her anxiety levels? It's something that we have to look at because it is one of the things that impacts a woman's, susceptibility to later on develop anxiety or depression or OCD
Right.
or post-traumatic stress disorder.
I have another question coming, but can you explain, I love this conversation, but can you give the definition for structural racism? Because that's not a common term that people use.
So structural racism is the systematic disenfranchisement of a group of people. So it's different from prejudice, which is a person's own belief system, or maybe even like their implicit bias that they're not conscious of. So when we talk about structural racism, we are looking at, again, how does their algorithms calculate where I go on the kidney transplant list? How does their algorithm calculate my risk as far, excuse me.
You could cut that out. Don't worry. Cough as much as you want.
And that cough is what you want.
I'm sorry, I got a tickle.
Yeah, no. It's all
Michael.
good.
Sorry, it's like making my eye water.
Take your time.
I'm sorry. It's just getting over a cold.
We all are. Take your time. It's
Okay.
You take
I'm
your
gonna
time
take
'cause
a
I'm gonna
big
drink
gulp.
water.
yeah.
I feel like it's good now. But so we're looking at how does the structures interact with this person?
What are some common signs that new or expecting parents, especially within a diverse multicultural community, might overlook when it comes to their mental health?
I think one of the things that might get overlooked in multicultural communities are what are my risk factors. So some of the risk factors, they're risk factors that happen in all communities, but the education might not reach certain communities because of whatever factors. So one of the things that's important to consider is, for instance, if a woman has a sibling who had a postpartum mood disorder or postpartum depression, she is, I think the number is 4 times more likely to develop postpartum depression or a
Wow.
postpartum, right, or a postpartum mood disorder. But what does that look like in a community where there is, for instance, in the Black community, one thing we see is spiritual bypassing.
What's
So,
that? Tell me.
so you know, historically, the Black American community has relied on faith to get through different
Okay.
challenges, inequalities. So spiritual bypassing is when we bypass a legitimate mental health concern, and kind of just spiritualize it as, oh, you need to have more faith. Maybe you need to pray more. That's not a mental health disorder. That's a spirit. So, these are common things that are said in some communities. Let's take that example. A woman who maybe she recognized that her sister experienced some of these symptoms of postpartum depression, community where spiritual bypassing is the norm. She might not bring that up to her doctor.
That makes
right?
sense.
Yeah, complete sense. And I think I love that people normalize that you can have God and therapy because I think it
Hmm.
speaks to both needs where you can pray and have your faith during this difficult time, but then you can also talk to a professional and say, I'm experiencing these signs after I gave birth. What is going on with my body? And then the
Right.
two can exist.
Mhm.
The two can exist.
That yeah, it actually I saw a post in the therapist group about a therapist saying that a child um sees a spirit and they're trying to and just incorporating that it doesn't have to be a hallucination. It could be a spiritual thing. And many adults live with seeing spirits throughout their lives and not pathologizing it. But what you're saying is that some women, as in the Black community, because it's so normalized, the opposite
Hmm.
is
Right.
the issue, is that people are not talking about it and bringing it up because why would you if it's not a problem?
Yeah.
Right.
And you could just
So,
pray it away.
hmm, right. So, one of the biggest risk factors is the stigma of
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging and seeking help for mental health concerns. I think another thing for women and men in multicultural communities to keep an eye out for is that a lot of times in different communities, instead of saying I'm depressed, we'll say, I'm not hungry or I have a
Mm.
stomach ache. And so it's the somatization of mental health issues that we actually acknowledge instead of I'm sad, I've been sad now for about 6 weeks, right? Instead it'll manifest as, I just I've been really tired. That's a more acceptable way in some communities of expressing the postpartum mood disorders that we might be experiencing. So really if your loved one has given birth recently, just paying attention to those things. I notice you're always, tired, and I know you're not getting a lot of sleep with the baby, but is there something a bit deeper?
Yeah. Yeah. I try to like,
Before I hand it off to Ariane, so how do we, because this is like generational, right? Like it has to,
Right.
you will be a great advocate for your daughters when they have babies and stuff. But what do you think is the best intervention to educate the community and looking for these signs?
I think the best intervention is to meet people where they are,
Hmm.
acknowledging that um, maybe certain resources just aren't accessible in some communities because of poverty or even barriers like language barriers, and figuring out, okay, well, how can I meet this person where they are despite that, and community outreach I think is
Hmm.
important. One of the things that is a protective factor in a lot of minority communities is that there are strong kinship ties. Doing outreach at community centers or churches, or even just different places that people gather,
Hmm.
um, is definitely one of the resources that we can really use. I've even seen people nowadays do things like community baby showers, and I think that is a great place to get the information out there that postpartum mental health is important,
Yeah.
that mental health during pregnancy is important, that if you're a woman who has experienced anxiety or depression before pregnancy, that is a pretty big predictor that you may experience it during pregnancy or after.
Ariane, do you want to take the next one?
yeah, that was important to say that
Yeah.
you've experienced anxiety before. You should check in with your anxiety while you're pregnant. So all of us are Gottman trained.
Yes.
And I will say one of my first things with Gottman was I hope this works for everybody. And so I'm wondering how do you use this approach in supporting couples and rebuilding connection and community? Because I feel like that's really the foundation of Gottman, like the connection, the bids for connection. But how do you feel like it lends itself with your work?
I feel as though the Gottman method gives me a framework to operate in. I can take all my knowledge about couples and families and the individual, and it puts it into a framework that makes it easy for me to almost like a checklist to go through or like a roadmap. I can screen for relapse halfway through the process if I feel like we're
Mhm.
getting stuck. And I can give the couples tools so that eventually they don't need me, because that is my goal, for them not to need me. And that's a really great feeling for me as a therapist when they get to that point. So it really puts the tools in my hand to, really just go deep into repairing things and give couples the tools they need to continue the work long after we're done. So it's really been a joy for me to practice the Gottman Method.
Love that. And that's, I think, why most of us like Gottman is it gives us a framework
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, it's a lot of energy and we just want to it's our tool to kind of help guide them.
Mm-hmm.
When they do get stuck, what do you think happens in their relationship that leads them to getting stuck? And what do you do to help them rebuild that or to get out of that stuck?
I think that, it's so complex what can make a couple get stuck.
True.
Even during like the therapy process, we get stuck sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that can make a couple get stuck most of all is feeling unheard or unseen,
Mm-hmm.
being invalidated, feeling invalidated. So there are times where I find I need to reteach a tool. And that is one of the things that I find myself reteaching. How can you validate your wife's perspective? How can you stop rushing to solutions when your husband is having a bad day
Mm-hmm.
and just wants to talk? So I think that's like the biggest thing that I've noticed causes couples to get stuck. And also really like a lack of repair, good repair, right?
Yeah.
Restorative repair, where we feel as though the other person understands the pain that they caused us and they're willing to make a behavioral change over time so that we can rebuild trust. So I think those are the biggest things. And honestly, addiction.
Mm.
Um addiction or untreated, co-occurring mental
Yeah.
health disorders. Addiction is something that, we can work through, but there really does need to be a plan in place. And sometimes just the very nature of the addiction process, there's resistance. So that's the other thing that really causes couples to get stuck, in my experience.
The
Okay.
validation is so important because I've said, like, I know I say this all the time, and I do. Like, you need to validate. Like, did you validate? Did you validate? Did you validate?
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, I did, and then and move on to the next thing, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, sit in the validation because when people
Right.
feel seen and when they feel heard, that is the solution. That is
Mm-hmm.
solving my problem. I don't need you to fix this or change this. Hear me and see me. So that's really good. I love that you said
Mm-hmm.
that. Something that
Mm-hmm.
you and I both have in common is we like to break the stigma within our own communities. We were passionate about working with our own communities. How do you feel like that shows up when you work with couples and families?
When I work with couples of and families, I try to always look at things through a multicultural lens, regardless of the culture or background of the couple. I try to consider things from a multicultural lens, and multiculturalism isn't just our ethnicity. It's also, is this couple going through the IVF process? Because that puts them into a different category. They are having a highly medicalized process of conception, a really important multicultural consideration that we need to think about. Also, is this couple a part of the LGBTQ community? Because we need to evaluate, okay, what is impacting the way this couple sets expectations? Are they setting expectations based on, heteronormative ideals? So I want to look at when I'm counseling couples who are from Black and Brown communities, it means that I'm acknowledging that there are added barriers for the male partner in the couple to come to couples counseling, to come to counseling. And so that looks like maybe doing a little bit more to help, them feel comfortable with the process and to also lower the power differential because as therapists, we do hold power. And when people are used to interacting with systems of power that have not went in their favor, they can be wary of medical providers. They can be wary of therapists. So I try to consider all of that when I'm meeting with multicultural couples.
Yeah, and it's important to say to connect with a Black male because, or any males, because typically it's hard for them to reach out. It's not the norm to reach out for therapy. I think we're getting better though. I think we're making progress. But yeah, to say like, I'm happy you're here. Thank you for coming. And like, speak to like, I know as a Black man, this may be difficult. And make sure that they feel seen in the session as well as the female. I mean, I'm always happy, like, you're here, you're a male, like, this is great. Like, even you being here is helping generations, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. So, yeah, that's a good point.
So combining the whole perinatal, postpartum, and your work with couples, what are some few foundational skills that you feel that has helped relationships when they're going through this major life transition of having children and raising them?
It's going to seem really simple. Good sleep, protected sleep. And
Okay.
so what that looks like is baby's not sleeping through the night. But what can we do to get mom some protected sleep? Can
Mm.
someone come over? Can you take shifts with the
Mm-hmm.
baby? Because, lack of sleep is a really big risk factor for postpartum depression. So, good sleep. Good nutrition. Can we set a goal where everyone, including baby, is getting outside for 30 minutes a day, a couple of times a week? Because we know that vitamin D levels impact depression.
Mm.
If you're glued to the couch all day breastfeeding, you're not getting sunshine.
Yes.
So it's really about keeping it simple in those first years because new parents are in survival mode. So how can we get you good sleep? How can we focus on nutrition? What do you need to talk about at your doctor's appointment, your next doctor's appointment? Let's talk through it because you're not thinking about that when you're holding a crying baby. But we know there are, needs that a new mom has. So just really focusing on those fundamentals, laughter, sunshine, good sleep, and also just the basics of communication for new couples. It's, not a time to maybe do more of the complex interventions that we
Mm-hmm.
do. But we can set some simple boundaries. A boundary could be we're not going to have this conversation at 11 o'clock at night. We're just too tired.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump down to the page of our questions and then let's see. How has becoming a mom shaped the way you show up as a therapist?
I started this journey. I was already a mom
Mm-hmm.
for maybe like 9 years before I became a therapist. So I feel like becoming a therapist has shaped me as a mom more
Oh,
than
wow.
being a mom has shaped me as a therapist. I think becoming a therapist has made me a more patient mom.
Hmm.
I've become more of a long-term thinker
Okay.
because I recognize that their childhood is my motherhood.
Mm.
It's forever linked. I do think that being a mother, it's one of the things that does enrich who I am as a therapist because I've had experiences that I can understand from the client perspective. I've had experiences of pregnancy loss, so I can understand a client in some way who is experiencing pregnancy loss. Her story is her story, right? But I can understand some aspects of her story and I can offer validation for that. So I think,
And I
yeah,
just want to say that's something that AI cannot do,
Ooh.
right,
which
right.
is, yeah, because clients can see the tears, like not that we need to cry, but the empathy when we connect with them on a deeper level. And a
Right.
lot of that is part of the therapeutic process.
Yeah,
A
good point.
therapeutic
AI
holding.
can't replace a therapist. Yeah.
Mm.
Angela, we talked about this a little bit in the beginning before we started, but when you have time, what are your go-to self-care practices?
Oh gosh, I love rom-coms. Um,
Aw.
I love bubble baths. I love when my kids are not in the car, I can turn on my early 2000s rap really loud.
Who's your favorite?
Yeah, what's your go-to?
Gosh, it's nobody. Well, let me think. I mean, I love DMX.
Rest in
I love
peace.
like some like alternative, I guess, rap. I love Lupe Fiasco. I'm into different things, but I just need a good beat. That's all I need. But yeah, and I think my favorite self-care is being with my sisters. I have 4
Aw.
sisters. So for me it's like someone who already knows all the pages in my book.
I love that. Gosh, I just love talking to you. All these, I'm just picturing all the little Instagram posts that Ariane's going to do from our
Oh wow.
All the
podcast.
quote, all the quotes that she was saying, them, I was like, oh, that would be great to repost.
Yeah, their childhood is forever linked to my
I know,
motherhood.
that was
It's
really
like,
good.
what? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
That was sweet. That was really sweet. All right, fun question to wrap us up real quick. How did you become fluent in Italian?
Accident got put into Italian. In 8th grade, we all had to pick languages. I think I wanted French. I got put into Italian, and I really fell in love with my teacher, Signora Isbel. She was an amazing Italian teacher, and she just would bring Italy to life for us. She'd
Aw.
bring just kind of like little treats and maps, all kinds of things in for us. So she really opened up our minds. And so I eventually went on to study abroad. And so I was like, okay, I need to really learn the language if I'm going to live there.
Love that. That's so cool.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. I hope that you will be coming on again because you definitely
Thank you.
have so much for us to explore and to pick your brain about. And I love that we're having these conversations and hopefully you gave me a lot of great ideas as far as how to reach communities. How wonderful would it be to go to crash a community baby shower
Yeah.
and like give resources and stuff.
Mhm.
But thank you so much. And thank you, Ariane, for co-hosting with me.
Thank you.
Before we go, Aurora Healing Crew, take a deep breath like you're soaking in sunlight. Warm, steady, grounding. As you move through your day, check in with your gut. Notice how you feel around others. Your energy is precious. Protect it so you have the strength and light to do what really matters to you. Because life is hard, and we're getting through it together. Thank you for listening to the Aurora Sessions Beyond the Couch. Visit our website at aurorasuncounseling.com to learn more. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Just search Aurora Sun Counseling. Got questions or topics you'd love to hear us cover? Email us at info@aurorasuncounseling.com or drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you.